Okay, ZBA, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome everybody to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for December 20th, 2022. We had 4 scheduled public hearings this evening. 3 have been canceled. I'll read the ones quickly that have been canceled. Sand Highway LLC has been canceled. Bill Harron, 46 Settlers Landing has been canceled. And Revocable Trust of Robert E. Isaacson on Gerard Drive has been canceled. So we have 1 public hearing this evening, and the applicant is Mohammed Grima at 425 Cranberry Hole Road, Namagansett, Suffolk tax map number 300-128-1-32.1. And the size and location is 54,325 square feet at 4025 Cranberry Hole Road, Cherry Point, lot number 1, map number 11091 in Amagansett. The description is to construct a 3,463 square foot total 2-story residence, 1,008 square feet of first floor decking, covered decking, and entry 1,316 square foot of second floor decking and covered decking, a 416 square foot roof deck, a 564 square foot swimming pool, walkways, driveway, and sanitary system on a parcel of land containing beach vegetation dunes and tidal wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to section 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is A residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We do. Pursuant to section 255-9-23 of the Town of East Hampton Code, we have posted a posting and a certified mailing done on December 8th, 2022, 10 days prior to this hearing.
Thank you. Joan?
Yeah.
You? Lighting.
So the property was properly posted, and you can see the house at 421 is to the left, and the beginnings of the driveway is to the right. Next. That's my car. That's looking away to the east, down Cranberry Hole Road. Next, sorry. And that's looking the other way. Oh, I think that's the osprey nest.
Right.
Sorry. That's the osprey nest.
Isn't that east?
That's east.
That's east.
Sorry. Next. And
That's west.
that's west. And that's the house next door. Next. Now, this was also in our materials. It's sort of the abandoned driveway that runs off the road that goes to the cannery. Next. That's more of the abandoned driveway and the example of the vegetation. Next. More vegetation in the house next door. Next. More vegetation to the east, and the cannery is in the distance. Next. There's a catamaran there. And you can see the water just beyond it. Next. And right over the edge is a drop of a couple feet, and then the water. Next. That's looking west. The beach is pretty short from my memory of being in Napeag before. Next. And that's the beach going to the east. Next. And the catamaran, just to give you perspective. Next. Now I'm walking back, and that's looking towards the road. It's not a very wide, there's not a lot of distance, I guess is what I'm trying to say, between the water and the road. Next.
That's it. That's it.
That's it?
Yep.
I thought I had a few more. Oh, well.
Thank you. John?
Official
Hey,
with
John.
us. Hi, good evening, John Tarbett for the applicant. So this is our second time before the board. We originally started with a request for a 3,900 square foot house, my glasses on, and an 876 square foot pool. I think during that initial hearing, the board expressed some concerns regarding the size of the house and the pool. And prior to a determination, we shrank the at least the house down from 3,900 square feet to 3,600 square feet. That application was still denied. So then we resubmitted a new application at 3,463. So originally we wanted a 3,900 square foot house, and now we're at 3,463. Sorry, the initial house was 3,926. So rounding up, it's about a 500 square foot drop from where we originally started on the house. And the pool is now 564, where it was originally 876. So we significantly reduced the size of the pool as well. Just hard numbers. We're proposing 5,466 square feet of coverage, where arguably or technically 16,000 square feet is allowed. Our building coverage is 3,000, where 6,000 would be allowed if there were no natural resources on the property. And it's a 54,000 square foot lot, but as proposed, 36,000 square feet of it would be covered by scenic easement. So again, if you go back to total coverage, we're on a 54,000 square foot lot, we're looking to develop 5,466 square feet of it. I guess rough math, 10% of the property. The other 90% would not be developed. And to be honest, some of that is underwater. So I said that before Roy points it out to me. So in any event, we are only asking to disturb 10% of the property. And the reason why we're here tonight is we meet bluff crest setbacks, we meet wetland setbacks, we're behind the coastal erosion hazard line, we meet all dimensional setbacks. I think I mentioned it, we're behind the DEC setbacks, we're FEMA compliant. The one natural resource that we couldn't avoid is the beach vegetation on the property. Now, granted, a portion of the house is being built over what was a road, but there is still some beach vegetation outside of where the road was, and probably now some has recolonized the road itself. Beach vegetation is what you would typically expect to find in anywhere probably south of 27 in this area in Amagansett. So needing that natural resource special permit. I know what I wanted to mention. So another way to, and I know this came up the last time, the house directly next door, which you see some pictures of, was approved approximately 20 years ago. That house, just doing numbers, was approved at 4,354 square feet. So if we're now at 3,400, we're about 1,000 square feet, or 25% smaller than the house that was approved next door 20 years ago. And last time erosion was given as a reason for why a smaller house is more appropriate now, which I'll touch on in a second. So I know I know that board will mention that, but also that house next door has a 20 by 40 pool that was approved, as well as significantly more decking. In general, it's just a much bigger development, which maybe 20 years ago was more appropriate. But what we now are proposing, what I'm trying to get at is we're significantly smaller than the house next door that was approved 20 years ago. They're also closer to, I think if they tried to build that house today under current standards, they would need variances. For whatever reason, erosion has, maybe because we're in like the little armpit behind the fish factory, and there's numerous reasons for why erosion is bad in that area. Some are theories and other ones are probably reality. But for whatever reason, our specific property has not suffered the same erosion as the property next door. They've now talked about the fact that maybe it was a changing of the channel inlets in Nepean Harbor, which caused a significant erosion in the last 20 years. There's also some talk that the fish factory itself used to have a marina, and that marina filled in over the last 20 years. You can imagine how much sand was taken out of the littoral drift as it tried to get to these properties to fill in that marina. Now that it's filled in, hopefully some of that sand makes it around the point and reseeds this area with more sand. In any event, our property, what we're proposing, you have a 100-foot setback for wetlands. We're 150 feet, so we're 150% of the required setback. We're also dune compliant and meet all dimensional setbacks from the wetland or the bluff. There's just so much ground to cover that I thought it may be easier if I stick to Tyler's new technical analysis memo, just to probably try to file an order. Just point out some areas that are probably open to discussion. Tyler starts out talking about the comparisons between this application and the previous one, which I just covered. So Tyler and I know the board had previously focused extensively on the erosion in the area, and we would just like to point out that we're CHA compliant, we're FEMA compliant, we're DEC compliant, and we're 150% of what the required wetland setbacks are. So we argue that the discussions about erosion maybe are not as important as discussions about what we're here for, which is the natural resource special permit to disturb beach vegetation. He goes into discussions about the house next door that was approved, and I've just given the board the fact that at least on we're 50% the size of their pool, we're 25% smaller than the house that was approved next door. So we feel like we have tried to be very conservative in what we're proposing for you tonight. We have tried to meet all of the requests or the things that Tyler brought up in his TAM as far as ways we can improve the project, which is how we originally started at 3,900. It's also how we got to 117. You know, the code requires 100-foot setback from the bluffs. We're 117 feet now. A lot of that is as a result of Tyler's comments in his original TAM. The only thing that we point out is that he now, or maybe even back then, suggests that you could get closer to the street. We're 25 feet from the street, which I didn't do the math, but I imagine this room is maybe 25 feet wide. So that's pretty close to the street. And you have to allow roof and parking. The other problem is the house as proposed now is at a 6-foot elevation. Out by the street is 3 foot. So that would change everything. And it would change the septic. It would require variances for height and pyramid. And while that may be a good idea, you never want as an applicant to take yourself out of a request for a special permit, which is a specially permitted use, and ask for a prohibited use. So it would be irresponsible for an attorney or an advocate for anybody to say, hey, we'd rather like a variance as opposed to a natural resource special permit. The board could consider granting those, I suppose. It would have to be noticed for them, but I don't think it makes sense for us to ask for a variance. It also just becomes structurally very difficult because of FEMA. We're in AE10, we have to be at 12. By the street, it's 3 feet. So you have a house that would be that much harder to comply with FEMA, which we now comply with. So I don't think moving it 25 feet, which is maybe the distance of this room in width, is something that makes sense in light of all the design and also the aesthetics. Driving up and down Cranberry Hill Road, I don't know if anybody would want a house that close to the road. The other thing that was brought up was the osprey, which, so I believe the osprey nest is across the street, right? And I don't know a lot about ospreys. They're not protected in the town code. They're not protected by the DEC as far as construction activity.
Across the street on Cranberry or across the street on the?
Where is it?
On the access road.
It's on the same side of.
It's on the
Cranberry.
same side. It's on the same side.
It looked like it was.
Yeah.
Just across
All
the
right.
driveway to the
Yeah.
fish farm.
The driveway to
It's
the fish
just
farm.
across the
Yeah.
driveway.
Yeah, okay, the driveway to the fish farm. Sorry, that's the, so I'm sure there is something we could do to help alleviate any concerns regarding the osprey. But they also, I'm pretty sure when you drive into Riverhead, those two roads across, there's an osprey nest right on the road there. I know there's one nesting on top of Suffolk County National Bank in downtown Riverhead. So I don't know necessarily whether there's any science that 100 feet is too close, or 150 feet, or 200 feet, or I also don't know. I mean, I think I did some quick research online, and I know the ospreys nest and the eggs hatch in April. So from March to August is a very long window to not construct, especially in a project that's going to take longer than a year. So we would be willing to try to work around that. I think the concern would be maybe the framing of the house, and maybe not frame in April. There has to be something you could do, but in essence, it's probably a bigger request than I couldn't find anything. I searched, I Googled the entire country. I don't see anybody trying to say stay back from ospreys. They're not an endangered bird. So 100%, I get it that you want to, and that's also a man-made nest that was put there. I know that they routinely move nests when that on power lines. So I'm not underestimating or shooting down the importance of the osprey nest. I just think that there's probably some room there to discuss, should the board look favorably in this application, how to not overdo it as far as protecting the nest. I know there were a lot of questions from the board to the applicant the last time they were here. I'm open to questions. I'm also open to listening to what Tyler has to say. Short of our application, and I did want to make sure I requested that all the material from the previous application be incorporated into this application. So there was a memo of law put in by Adam Miller's office. I'd like that to make it into this one, as well as I think maybe there was a neighbor who objected last time. I can't remember, but anything from the previous file should be incorporated into this file. So if I could boil it all down, the applicant bought this property approximately 2 years ago, looking to build a home for his family and his young kids. Now, 2 years later, when he originally bought it, he was advised that he would need a natural resource. I'm sure I didn't represent him at the closing, but I'm sure whoever represented him at the closing told him he was going to end up needing a natural resource special permit, and that he should avoid all variances, not come to this board and ask for any variances. As it turns out, there was a building envelope in this property that met all dimensional variances. He just needed a natural resource special permit for to disturb beach vegetation. I think very reasonably, he looked next door and said, okay, they got a 4,500 square foot house. I'll come in at 3,900. I'll make it my pool slightly smaller. He probably didn't take into account that things have changed in the last 20 years, just environmentally overall, not just erosion, but just the way we treat the environment and natural resources in this town. So the board expressed concerns. He lowered it to 3,600. It was still denied. He's now lowered it to 3,400, which is again 25% smaller than the next door. And unless there's any, and again, he's only developing 10% of the property. So if we could focus on the fact that he's requesting a natural resource special permit to disturb beach vegetation, I think that the 35,000 square foot scenic easement, as well as everything else I've mentioned here tonight, is a very compelling application, which hopefully will be approved so that he can now move forward and build the house for his family.
John, I think one of the things we're wrestling with, and I think it's ultimately a function of the erosion that has happened. It's a lot of erosion there, forcing the house to be up against the road even more, rather than the house that was set back larger, that's set back. So the vista is changed, right? So we have now what you have in your building envelope, a large house, a lot closer to the road. So the vista, I think, is one of the things where character of the neighborhood type of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, from all appearances, you've cut back square footage, but I don't know how much of the massing of the house has been cut back. Where is that?
Didn't address the massing. I'd have to compare I didn't prepare it to have that brought up because it's not an ARB or an aesthetic review board.
Right. If you remove some, if you remove
yard setbacks, and
but if you remove some GFA,
requiring a lot this size.
if you remove some GFA inside the house, it's really not affecting the massing of the house. Am I right?
I don't think you can remove. I don't mean to be glib, but I'm not sure I follow, because if you remove GFA, you remove GFA. I'm not sure how he did it,
Right.
but certainly the house next door is only 71 feet from the bluff now, and we're 117 feet. So we're significantly further from the wetland, if that's the concern. If it's concerned about how close we are to the street, well, the planning department's asking, it has asked us now to move it. We've moved it closer to the street in response to the planning department's previous concerns. I think you're agreeing with me that moving it any closer to the street is not aesthetically pleasing. And I don't think if we're at 3,400 now, we've never had any feedback on what is the magic number. And we're sort of guessing at that each time, trying to use other houses as examples for ourselves. Is 3,100 square foot the magic number? Like it's sort of becomes a guessing game. And does it change anything measurably? If we're 117 feet from we're only required to be 100 feet from the bluff, but we're 117 now. We made it 120 feet. Yeah, it's become somewhat arbitrary trying to guess at the right number. It's especially permitted use, right? So theoretically, he can do it as long as he acts reasonable and rational and responsible with regard to the town code. I think he has. I think he did last time, but obviously it's not I don't vote. So
I just want to follow up on the point that the chair made, and that is that, you're talking about a house that's going to be 32 feet in height,
Yeah.
starting at 6-foot elevation where you have it now, which puts it up at about 38 feet in elevation. That's the numbers that are on your drawing. Those
no,
are the
it can only be 32 feet above natural grade.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the natural grade is at 6 feet. So I'm saying, so we're talking about plus elevation of 38 and out at the
Sure.
road,
Yeah.
the elevation at the road is down around 1.5 feet. to
Okay,
2
yeah,
feet,
it
okay?
drops away as it
So
goes to the road.
when you
Yeah.
take that building that we have up there now and we see that line and we place it closer to the road because we're worried about erosion, all the things you've already commented on. That's the question right there, is what is that doing in terms of character of the neighborhood? And that's what came up last time. And that's
Yep.
what we're addressing now, is the GFA may have changed, but the roof line hasn't changed. And the look of the house from the road hasn't changed in particular. So that's fine. I just want to go back up.
I can
on
just
it.
address
Go
that quick before we jump
Go
on the
ahead,
next
go
one, which I'm happy to go to is with all due respect,
Yeah.
You're not here to judge houses on massing or that's an A or B or historic district type concern. We're here for beach vegetation, right? That would be my answer to your comment. I respect your comment. I don't know if it's appropriate to start talking about roof lines or massing, especially when the only reason we're at a 6 elevation, there's a much better elevation for us, which is a 12 elevation.
Mhm.
It's just closer to the protected natural features.
Right.
So the whole, as we get pushed back, you can't then say, hey, look, look, this is terrible. Your house is above the street. Well, if you let us move, we're doing our best to locate this house and the best location of the property.
So John, you keep bringing up the house next door, but in my view, I mean, it's just my opinion.
You were here then,
Yes,
not a voting member.
I don't feel it was a comparable, I don't feel it's a qualifying comparable because of, I mean, if you had that house before us today,
Mhm.
it wouldn't be, it probably wouldn't get approved. I
On
mean,
what
this is
gra-
20
Can I ask you
years
what
ago.
grounds, just like because of the closeness to the
Well, the
wetland? or-
erosion in this area, the velocity of the storm action and what takes place, it's a volatile area, which is what the board took into consideration the last time. So here's my question. You've brought back these changes. So for me, how do you feel that these changes that you've made, because this is for a natural resource special permit, how does this qualify for that? How does it meet the standard? Because you are saying beach vegetation, and that's,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
looking at that. So how do you feel this application meets that standard?
Well, so when I was reviewing the application after the hearing and tonight, I'm well aware, I don't represent the person at the end of Bayview, sandbags out in front of the house, right? Like
Mhm.
I get the erosion in the area. And ironically, the town's own comp plan points to the fact that it's potentially the town who caused the erosion by dredging that. But anyway, there's bad erosion in the area in general.
Mhm.
However, this particular property, I think it's really important to understand that we don't know the next 20 years. We can assume that erosion gets because of rising sea levels, but this is not rising sea level. This is this particular area, something happened in the last 20 years. We don't know it's going to get worse. We can assume it would, but it might get better because they're also talking about doing some other ways there's a lot of talk about what's the trustees and maybe taking some of the sand they dredge out in that Peak Harbor and put it back into littoral drift each year. There's a lot of reasons to believe that we actually could get accretion in this area in the next 20 years, not erosion.
Mhm.
So what we have to work with is where are we today? So the house next door, you're right, it wouldn't be approved because they've had erosion. That house now sits 70 feet from the bluff, so they would need
Right.
a variance, right? We were lucky enough to put our house behind the house next door where we're proposing it. And so the DEC worries about erosion, the town code worries about erosion, and the federal government worries about erosion with FEMA. Our house onto today, as we propose it, meets all of those setbacks and standards. Where again, the town says, hey, make sure 100 feet from the bay. We're 150 feet. So we're 50% greater than the town code sets out as a reasonable setback for protection from erosion. So to talk about erosion on this particular application is somewhat unfair because they've done everything that they're required to do and don't need any relief from any code. We have a county permit, we have a DEC permit, and we meet all town setbacks. So to pull the conversation away from the beach vegetation argument and say it's an erosion argument, at least from the applicant's position, is somewhat unfair because they're not asking for any of that relief. Would be my answer. I think,
Mhm.
and then how does my application meet the current code?
Mhm.
I mean, the two best numerical arguments are on a 54,000 square foot lot, we're offering to put 36,000 square feet under scenic easement. And we're only proposing to develop 10% of the lot, right? 90% of the lot would be forever without coming back to the board, I guess. Arguably, this a small adjustment you can make through another natural resource permit, but 90% of the lot is not being developed. So at what point, if you take 100 square feet off the size of the house, is it 9.9 developed and 91%? Where's the, you're talking about specially permitted uses. There's supposed to be some sort of rational, reasonable way to build a house on them. This particular lot, had it not needed a natural resource special permit for beach vegetation, could have a over a 5,000 square foot house. So as far as massing goes, the town code says that it's perfectly appropriate. If we're gonna go, let's leave beach vegetation, discuss massing and house size. We're double the required front yard setback. Well, it's 15 and we're at 25, so not double, but significantly bigger. And a lot like this, had it not had beach vegetation on it, could have a 5,000 square foot plus house. We're at 3,400 square feet. So we're 40% smaller than what the town code says is a perfectly appropriate size house for a lot as far as aesthetics go. So it's hard to look at it it's that two-dimensional, an elevation and say that house looks big, because you're not, a 10,000 square foot house on that piece of paper would essentially look the same size because there's no way to compare it versus the surroundings. But a 3,400 square foot house is not a big house on a 1 acre lot, especially when the house next door is significantly bigger, 25% bigger.
I just want to address for a minute your questions about your comments about the Osprey next door. There wasn't a suggestion in the TAM and otherwise in these situations that there'd be no construction. It was that heavy construction to be done in the off season so that a house started in the fall could be through the framing stage by the spring.
Yeah.
And during that nesting season that's most sensitive. The thing about that particular nest is it's not transient. It's one of the first osprey nests in the Napeague area. It's been continually used. So it's got a lot of attention to it. So there's going to be natural concern about its condition and what are we doing? You're perfectly right to say that there are plenty of osprey nests that sit in very vulnerable areas and they're successful. But nonetheless, when we introduce a factor like a large scale amount of construction immediately adjacent to it, those questions come up. So one of the things that was recommended in the TAM was that we look at ways to get the heavy construction done, not during the height of the nesting season.
So as somebody who appreciates nature, myself personally, and I'm sure the applicant doesn't want to do anything to disturb that osprey nest.
Right.
I just thought March to August seemed like a big window. And also the TAM itself just said, it wasn't entirely correct me, but I didn't think it was all that detailed as far as what he was thinking. So if they nest in April, we certainly should not be banging nails in April. I mean, that seems like a really bad timing. But I don't know where the detail, I don't know where maybe Tyler or the board could suggest something and we could agree to it. But I just thought March to August seemed like a long period of time, especially when they nest on streets and in downtown.
Oh, in Waitscott, you have one right there by Poxabogue.
They don't seem to be bothered by, there's no evidence they're bothered by noise, but we wouldn't want to do anything to disturb them. I think they're more bothered by harassment right? So maybe there's a construction protocol too. Make sure nobody parks anywhere near it. You know?
Yeah, it's just when it comes to natural resources, the town is, we think, I think the town code is clear in its intent. When you look at it, that it's natural resources, it's set aside its natural resources for preservation. And along with that is looking at orderly growth and stuff like that in their neighborhoods. And, we have many places in town where recently we do see aggressive or oversizing of homes. I'm not saying this is, or that's not what I'm saying, but as a board, that's what we look at.
Yeah.
And we take it seriously. So, it's, it's just a comment.
Yeah, I get it. And I also have seen this board actually grant variances to put what I consider to be pretty large houses, like the one on Marine Boulevard. You may have the one on Marine Boulevard as you go into the drive on point on the left, right? If you think about that application, they came to me originally and said, "Here's what we propose." I said, "There's no way you're going to get that approved," and it got approved. But that's a house where variances are granted to have a full height. Right, we're double their setback. We're not asking for that, and I don't think that would be appropriate. But I also think that again, it's a third. It's not a five. It's not the houses we're thinking when we think of massing. We think about the Lanes and Amagansett. We think about a certain builder who built a ton of houses that are all roof line. They weren't 3,400 square feet. This is a relatively modest house. I live in a 3,400 square foot house. I don't think it's large.
I have no further questions.
One last comment I forgot to say, and I'll sit down. If erosion is still a concern, every other house on Cranberry Hill Road goes before us. So it would be since as the last man in, we would be the furthest house back, and you can see on a map. So there would be a lot to worry about before the water ever got to this particular house. That's my point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tyler?
Good evening, Tyler Borsak for the Planning Department.
Tyler, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. This parcel is located on Cranberry Hill Road in Amagansett. The northern part of the lot bounds Napeague Bay, which is a New York State significant habitat, and it's also a component of the Peconic Estuary program's critical environmental area. The unimproved area along Cranberry Hill Road are characterized by intact rolling dunes on which some of the most sensitive species of vegetation and wildlife inhabit. To the south of Cranberry Hill Road is part of Napeague State Park and is wholly located within the scenic area of statewide significance. This vacant lot resembles the same ecosystem on the north side of the road, containing rolling dunes and significant high-quality beach vegetation. The application before the zoning board is for a 3,463 square foot two-story residence with 466 square foot lower level garage, which also includes 972 square feet of storage, swimming pool, decking, walkways, driveway, and sanitary system. The board denied a similar application recently for a 3,926 square foot total two-story residence, 876 square foot pool, spa, decking, walkways, driveway, and sanitary system. The current proposal and earlier denial appear to be very similar with the main differences being a reduction in the decking on the north side of the residence by approximately 170 square feet, reducing the size of the swimming pool by approximately 140 square feet, reduction of the gross floor area of the second story by 206 square feet, increasing the second story decking on the west side by 200 square feet, decreasing the second story decking on the north side by 157 square feet, and decreasing the size of the roof decking by 96 square feet. So small changes here and there across most of it on the second story, but also on the north side of the residence with the pool and the decking. It appears that the scenic easement has also been increased in size slightly, moving the landward edge of the easement closer to the proposed improvements. And I have a survey I'll bring up later, similar to the one that I had given to the board for 175 Atlantic, which shows the previous denial and the current proposal on top of one another. I'll explain it but I'll bring it up at the end to make it a little easier. That's also included in the existing conditions memo that I gave to the board. The reduction of the decking in the swimming pool on the north side of the residence has increased the distance to the dune crest slightly from 115.2 feet to the corner of the swimming pool to a newly proposed 117.9 feet. It appears that no other changes have been proposed to help increase the distance from the dune crest to the residents and associated structures. Development along Cranberry Hole Road should be closely scrutinized and monitored, as the coastline on the north side is one of the most dynamic in the town. Parcels along this stretch of road have been known to lose feet from the dune crest within a single year. The subject parcel is one of the most dynamic stretches, along this stretch of road. The Cherry Point minor subdivision was filed in April of 2004. The dune crest was initially flagged and verified by the planning department in 2000 prior to the subwaiver application. Since the dune crest on the approved subwaiver was identified, the dune crest has receded 63 feet on the west and 70 feet along the east sides of the property in 21 years, for an average between the two sides of about 3 feet per year. Other parcels in the area have been documented to have lost 8 feet in a matter of months. Erosion in this area is both chronic and episodic, in part because of seasonal storms and increased intensity and frequency due to climate change. This board approved a similar project in 2001 on the parcel to the immediate west, which was already discussed. The residence was similar in size to this application, and the closest structure of the pool decking 105 feet from the dune crest. Based on aerial review, that pool deck is currently 68 feet from the approximate location of the dune crest. The board should discuss that given the increased frequency and intensity of seasonal storms, documented erosion, and the fragile nature of the duneland soils, if a similar residence and scale of appurtenances or simply a relocation of the proposed residence may be more appropriate. Reducing the size or relocating the proposed residence to be constructed closer to the southeastern lot line and observe a larger setback to the dune crest is a reasonable alternative, which is better for long-term natural resources planning, especially considered the documented vulnerabilities of the area. The southern lot line on this property is a side yard lot line. That's not fronting on the Cranberry Hole Road, that fronts on an access easement. It's a side yard. The far south side would be Cranberry Hole Road on the survey. That thing on the, what would be on, I guess, on the right side of the survey is an access easement. So that has a 15-foot setback for principal structures. Currently, it's set back 28.5 feet. If it were to be pushed up to that 15-foot setback, it would not be 15 feet from Cranberry Hole Road. It'd be 60 feet probably from Cranberry Hole Road. It's an important distinction, I think, to make. Increasing the setback to the dune crest and tidal wetland as much as possible should be considered by the board and the applicant for long-term sustainability of the parcel. Relocating the residents would also decrease the amount of clearing required on the property, which has a high-quality duneland vegetation across the entire parcel. Reducing the side yard lot line setback from the proposed 28.5 feet down to the minimum required 15 feet would allow the residents to be located approximately 127 feet from the dune crest, maximizing the area between the residents and the dune. Relocating the residents, even if it required variances from pyramid or maximum height due to the topography of the property, would better fit the NRSP standards and would also likely meet the variance standards of the town code and provide better long-term protection of any residents in this vulnerable property. Section 255-551D2 of the NRSP standards specifically notes that, quote, alternative designs entailing smaller buildings or structures, reduced yard or other setbacks, or diminished or reconfigured areas of use are determined to not be effective in preventing the loss or potential damage of designated natural features, or the only such designs are found to be infeasible or unlawful, end quote. Allowing pyramid, height, and even lot line setback variances in order to create a better setback to that eroding dune crest on the property is specifically called out in the NRSP standards and should be examined as a reasonable alternative to the proposed location. The planning department encourages the zoning board to grant setback and variance relief if that relief results in the best possible location for the proposed structures and provides the best long-term protection for the improvements. It was mentioned that the residence was relocated slightly, or was relocated in the previous application. From my memory, it was only relocated nominally. It was not a significant increase from what I remember. But I could pull up the surveys if you wanted to take a look at that. Additionally, this is not a normal lot in town. So trying to compare it to any lot of this size as far as GFA or coverage or things like that it doesn't hold much for in our opinion for the zoning board. It requires a special permit which have specific standards. The clearing, the GFA, the coverage numbers, those are for any lot in town, not for lots, not for lots that were specifically require a natural resources special permit. So I don't know if it's appropriate to consider comparisons to what could be allowed on this property because it needs to be in front of you for specific reasons. Other than that, let me pull up the comparison information so you can see that. So this is, again, this is in the existing conditions memo. Essentially what this is the red is going to be the previous denied application and the black is on top of that. So anything you see in red is ultimately different than what the current lines are. So you can see the scenic easement is slightly different. The swimming pool here in red was the previous location. The black would be the current location. House is pretty much identical. There's this decking here, which has shifted back slightly. And, you know, drywalls have moved slightly, very, very minor differences on those. But overall, you can see it's very similar. Main differences being the pool location and the decking here, along with some other minor changes. Additionally, I included a geo reference, and this is an approximate location. It's not going to be ideal. It's mainly based on the tax map lines. So because the tax map lines aren't perfect, neither will the rest of it. It's close though. So this is the current 2022 aerial. And I just want to go back to show you the erosion over the years. 2022, this is 2010. You can see how much further out it is. This is 2001. So the current dune crest line is approximately here. In 2021, when we did it, this is it out in 2001. They've lost a significant amount of property on this lot. That's the main concern here, is that you may be approving a house that's 117 feet from the dune crest today, but in 10 years, it's definitely not going to be. That's ultimately the crux of what our concerns are with this project. And other than that, I can answer any questions you might have.
So you had a survey up showing us the location of the house, yeah, and the current location, and how far are we from Cranberry Hole Road at that point?
100 and
You do it on this one. So from Cranberry Hole Road, you're looking at 95 feet. Approximately.
Mhm.
is that a garage that is sunken?
Yeah, I remember.
John, I have a question.
Sure.
If you look at the front elevation of the house, you have a garage that is partially sunken. How much regrading is going to be done here? Again, we have dunes, we had another application down the street from this on Cranberry Hole Road recently where we really drilled into how much regrading was on the site because of the natural dunes.
Yeah.
And we didn't want that to be disturbed very much so I want to take a look at the grading on this and what's going to happen there.
No, let's see. I know we can, I'm just looking. The construction protocol, which was not a real construction protocol that was submitted, doesn't go into the grading.
It's going to be very important to us. Again, we're plopping a house in the middle of this, one of the most pristine dunes in East Hampton. Cranberry Hole Road is a sanctuary when it comes to our dunes. And so I don't think we want to just let a construction unbridled go in there and regrade and stuff like that. I think we have to pay attention to it.
It's fair. Yeah, I understand. So I don't know if I misspoke earlier because I keep considering that access easement to the fish factory to be the road. which it is a road, I guess, but Cranberry Hill Road is the real. So I think maybe I should have answered your question differently before. As far as the aesthetics, now knowing that it's 95 feet from Cranberry Hill Road, perhaps it's massing is a different discussion. I don't know if that's the case or not. But the one thing that the planning department doesn't talk about is what we're here for, which is the natural resource special permit to disturb beach vegetation, right? So there's no discussion. I think it is a high quality landscape beach vegetation. They keep referring to the distance from the bluff, but the town code says you have to be 100 feet from the bluff, and we're 117 feet from the bluff. So I just wanted to redirect the board to what we should be here to discuss is the applicant taking into consideration the natural resource, the protected natural resource, which is a beach vegetation. And I think your question about construction protocol is 100% taking that into consideration. That's the right question. Or a question is, how much of the property are you developing? In our case, it's 10% of the property. I don't know if that's the right number or not, but those are the types of conversations you have when you're here for beach vet. If we were here because we were they had either variance or NRSP setbacks for wetlands or dunes or bluffs, then we'd have an entirely different conversation, right? Then we'd be saying, well, look, our code says to protect the bluff, you should be on your own house, you should be 100 feet, but you're only 80 feet, which is the case with the neighbor next door now. And we'd be saying, we know there's erosion in the area. How dare you consider putting your house within 100, within our protected area? But we're not doing that. We're 117 feet from the bluff and 150 feet from the wetland. Could that go away tomorrow? Yeah, you could have some natural disaster. In that case, every house on Cranberry Hill Road would be gone on the south side, on the north side, and the Cranberry Hill Road would be gone. So all the guys across the street would be real happy because they'd be oceanfront, but they have no way to get to their house. So you're talking about a natural disaster that would destroy a significant portion of our town. And who knows? I mean, how would you get access to all the houses on the north side of the property? If all these houses go, and again, we're the one furthest behind them all, and Cranberry Hill Road goes, it's a huge discussion, but I don't think we have to have it today because we don't know if it's going to be. I just had someone by in the ocean in Montauk, and they said, well, how do I know it's not going to get washed away in a year? And I was like, you don't, right? Like it could, but it also might be there for 100 years. We just don't know. And we also, one of the things Tyler said is we know that there's going to be more erosion in the next 20 years. We don't know that. We actually are very hopeful because I have a number of property owners in this stretch that either they'll get some sand put back in the littoral drift from the trustees dredging, or that now that the marina has filled in, which is millions of cubic feet of sand, that sand will now make it around the point of the fish factory. The fish factory itself could be bought by the town at some point. They could get rid of the retaining wall that goes out into the water there and blocks all the sand. There's a million reasons for why you can be hopeful that you could do a special taxing district like they did in Sagaponic, and these property owners all up and down Cranberry Hill Road could have the opportunity to pump sand off from offshore to stabilize their bluffs. There's a lot of reasons why maybe you don't get more erosion in 20 years. I don't think you can say, hey, you meet all of our standards for bluff and wetland setbacks today, but
However, these properties are pretty exposed to the fetch of these nor'easters.
especially around on both sides.
Yeah.
This one is caught in, right?
Yeah.
Is that we're in that little knuckle on the fish factory, which is why I think we're somewhat protected. Hopefully. But certainly the ones on the other side of the fish factory on Bayview have been absolutely wrecked and going east. And going west from here, there's some properties that have suffered significant, and something's going to have to give, right? Because if they lost 8 feet a year, then it would only be a number of years before Cranberry Hill Road was gone.
What do we do about the grading? How do we address that?
So I would be happy to leave the record open to submit a construction protocol that included the proposed grading. And I can tell you now that we would try to submit something that included the least amount of grading and the tightest building envelope reasonable, and not making, not try to draw a tight circle around the house, pretending like there won't be a bigger cut. And then you could always, if you like the application, and we're going to vote for it, you could, if our construction protocol was good, you could approve it with that as a condition, or you could say approved, provided that the construction protocol is worked out to the satisfaction of the planning department, I suppose. And then it would be up to you. The planning department could be your.
How much time do you need for that?
Do you just want to check the phone lines to make sure nobody's?
Yes, I will do that. You know what? We haven't asked Terry if she had any questions. Terry, do you have any questions?
Well, I was concerned about, yeah, but Tyler did cover it when he got up there about the, the moving of the setback from the 28.5 feet to the 15. And John's take on that, which I guess, is that part of what you're looking at now, John, with this grading and construction?
Yeah, I think our answer to that was that we didn't want to put ourselves in a position to ask for a variance, and that the house was, we've put the house as far back as we can without triggering the need to, if we put the house any closer to the road, we'd have to be 3 feet higher from natural grade in order to comply with FEMA. And our septic system, we probably need giant retaining walls and a lot of fill to build a retaining system above, because you're dropping 3 feet closer to groundwater as you get closer to the street. So there's a lot of reasons for why, this house wasn't put where it is haphazardly or without a lot of thought. We tried to locate it in the best possible location. So while I think it's a natural inclination to say, hey, try to move further back, there are reasons why we can't. But as far as the construction protocol goes, I think that would be important, both to establish, and if it's not on there already, we should establish the absolute limits of what will be disturbed, and try to reduce or eliminate any significant grading.
Agreed.
Okay, but the grading is not going to take into account maybe moving the house back. It's basically on what we see here.
I think we're taking the position that we've moved the house back as far as practical without causing the need for either a variance or things the board would probably look significantly disfavorably upon, like a raised septic system with giant retaining walls in the front yard. I also don't think it would benefit what we're here for, which is a special permit to disturb beach vegetation. I don't think that would, we're only asking to impact 10% of the property, and it wouldn't significantly change that. It's not like we could go down to 4% or 3%. I think the best we can do is 10% of the property as far as disturbance.
Matt, is there anybody in the public online?
Yes, you do have one caller holding.
Okay, you want to let them in?
Absolutely. We're going to let in, unmute. Last 4 digits, 4221.
Hello, caller, and identify yourself. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chairman Deline, it's Jane Meering, 32 Ocean Lane, Amagansett. I am not an attorney.
You swear to affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I wasn't going to call in tonight, but thank you, Mr. Torbett, for when you mentioned you'd like to have everything from the last record moved into this record. And I was the neighbor that you mentioned that did write a letter of concern for the last application. Actually, earlier today, I did resubmit that letter already to the record with just a few more comments, and I will not belabor, but just really quickly. So first of all, the headline number for the original application, as was mentioned, was 3,926 square feet, but that was reduced before the board's denial, and that denial, I think you said, was somewhere around 3,600 square feet. So at 3,463, that seems like just a de minimis reduction of house size. I know there's been other scaling back of the pool and the decking in the rear on the first floor. Secondly, I just want to say and thank you, board. You've asked a lot of questions. Your use of the word sanctuary resonated with me in this area. But tonight I heard, well, it's only a natural resources special permit. It's only dune vegetation. But I understand how rigorous the code is around variances. But as I understand it from my layperson's public perspective, the standards for an NRSP and special permits overall are quite stringent and do actually invoke things such as the impact on surroundings and the neighborhood. And so I do think the scope and the scale and the massing, which includes the 32-foot roof line above grade, is important. Third, I would agree that pulling the house even further forward would not really solve the problem because it would just make the intensity of this structure, which actually reads from the front like a 3-story house with a lot of space that's semi on below the first floor, significantly and partially above grade. So I just wanted to come back on that and resubmit. The only last point is, in my first letter back in January, I did talk a lot about erosion. You've all talked about erosion a lot tonight. And the thing that's different between then and now is that the town has issued and discussed at length and adopted this thing called the CARP plan, Coastal Assessment Resiliency Plan. And I know that it hasn't necessarily been codified in terms of changes to house size or development. However, it does make more tangible and more realistic a reason to be ever more cautious about development in this area, which in that plan is listed as, I think, within the top 3 or 5 spots, hot spots around erosion and vulnerability going forward. I had a drive to Lazy Point 2 days ago after 3 days ago of the last storm. Not necessarily on this property, but I was shocked to see how sort of flooded and wet so much along Cranberry Hole had become just from what was not a monumental storm. And so I do really think this is a vulnerable area, and I know you will consider that. But so thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't just, I'm not argumentative. I just wanted to point out I just want to clarify that when I say it's only dune vegetation, I don't mean that should somehow diminish the importance of protecting dune vegetation. I was simply trying to point out that we're not asking for either dimensional variances, wetland variances, or dune crest.
I think you were clear on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I can just wrap up by saying that it's tough, and we've all experienced this. Like if the property next to you is vacant and someone builds on it, it hurts your soul, right? And same as a vacant property in Cranberry Hole Road. We've all driven by there, and we all appreciate the beauty of Cranberry Hole Road. So to the extent that this property is going to be developed, there's a degree of shame to it. But it is a buildable parcel, right? The CPF committee could have bought it, and the person who bought it really should have had a reasonable expectation that he could get a house approved on it. He does have the right to build on it, and he does meet all code requirements, with the exception of disturbing beach vegetation. And I think the question is, what has he? If you were not to vote for this, what has he done to not take into consideration the importance of protecting beach vegetation? I think we've established that he's done everything he possibly can to without triggering the need for a variance or putting his house up against the road. But even if you were to do that, there's no solid argument that you would somehow disturb less beach vegetation. He's only proposing to disturb 5,000 square feet of beach vegetation on a 54,000 square foot lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, is on.
How long do you need the record open, John? 2 weeks going into the holidays?
A month.
Joan, you want to make a motion?
Hold on.
Quick comment real quick. Sorry. It was mentioned that it was only in jurisdiction of the beach vegetation. This property is well within, the residence is well within 150 feet of the edge of beach on this property, which is also one of the things that requires a natural resources special permit. It's not common that you have something that's like outside of the jurisdiction of the dune crest, but inside jurisdiction of the edge of the beach. This is one of those properties clearly. On top of that, it needs a natural resources special permit, and one of the general standards is compatibility, both with the property itself and the neighborhood in general. So I think talking about erosion is perfectly acceptable in that context. But aside from that, it's within jurisdiction of the edge of beach on this property. So I think talking about coastal erosion certainly fits in every way in this case. I just wanted to add that to the discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One last comment. The planning department seems so, I didn't expect them to be opposed to the application as it's been redone. It's tough for them to be opposed to every application without offering up what is appropriate. I'd be curious to hear from the planning department what they think is appropriate for the parcel, other than just being opposed to every application that is submitted. So, thank you.
Thank you.
In the matter of Mohammed Grima, 425 Cranberry Hole Road, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Number 300-128-01-32.1. I make a motion to close the public hearing and to leave the record open for 1 month.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Happy holidays.
Yeah.
I think we have some admins, Tyler.
Yes. You want me to read them?
Just a note that
I don't have.
the online agenda has not been fully updated because Laura is out sick, so.
We don't
so
have them.
We had them in emails, but
The first one is Mayor, and that is 41 Molina Drive in East Hampton. Tax number is 300-35-4-12. What this project is. That's a lot of stuff. What this project is a demolition of the existing structure. This is at the corner of Molina Drive. So like the northwest corner of Molina Drive almost. So demolishing this existing structure, which is very non-conforming, setback 21 feet from the bluff crest there, and constructing a larger residence in a conforming location entirely. So they're demoing the existing non-conforming house, constructing a new house and pool in a conforming location. It's setback 77 feet, where 75 is required. The residence is 3,481 square feet. And they're also including a 30-foot buffer from the bluff crest. So they'll have conforming clearing on the property. It's a small lot, but they're doing a significant amount, pulling this house from up near the bluff crest and going entirely conforming. So that's why we're comfortable processing it administratively.
How large a house is the new one to be?
3,481.
The lot size, I'm sorry, what is it?
Lot size is. Excluding the top of the bluff is 19,194. Total, which would be that, deeded lot area, is just shy of 30,000.
Can you scroll up that again a little bit?
This year.
Yeah, okay, I see that. Show me the house again now.
anybody have any questions?
I have no problem with this.
No,
We okay with it?
I am.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm fine.
This is East Hampton.
Yes.
What's the tax map number?
It is 300-35-4-12.
And therefore I make a motion to, in the case of Molina Drive,
Meyer was the name.
Meyer, to Suffolk tax number 300-35-4-12 is to allow the application to proceed administratively.
I'll second it.
Concur.
I concur.
And I concur.
Thank you.
Okay,
Next,
the next one is Geisk, I think it's how it's pronounced. This is 6 Powder Hill Lane in East Hampton again. Tax map is 300-90-2-1.2. This is very straightforward. This is a 217 square foot sunroom, 138.7 feet from the edge of wetlands. And they're legalizing removing of deck, which they've already done. So the deck is gone. They just need to legalize that the work has been done. They're not replacing it. They're just removing it. And then, so most of the work is the construction of this 217 square foot sunroom. And that's it.
And your position is that, what?
It's a very minor project. It's almost out of jurisdiction. It's a small existing residence. We didn't see the need for any additional mitigation. They have fairly good clearing line on the property. We're very comfortable with this one.
I'm comfortable too.
I don't have any issues with
Yep.
it.
I have no issues.
Okay, therefore I make a motion in the matter of Geist, you said?
I think so, yeah. GISKE.
Tax map number 300-90-2-1.2 to allow it to proceed administratively.
Second.
Second,
I concur.
I concur.
Thank you.
okay, Joan got the second? And
Yes,
I'll
Joan.
concur. Okay, I'll concur.
Is there any more admins, Tyler?
No, there's an extension of time, but I think we usually do this later, right?
Well, we can do the extension of time. now.
It's very simple. This is Humphreys. It's out in the trailer park in Montauk, Montauk Shores condominiums. It was approved originally for a 67 square foot shed, 12 square foot outdoor shower, and to reconstruct a deck, stairs on a parcel of land with coastal wetlands and bluffs. It's on the south side, so it's on, it has the bluffs to deal with, as well as tidal wetlands. It was approved in 2018, so this is the first year they needed an extension of time on it. Nothing's changed on the property, so we're comfortable with the extension of time.
Tax map number, Tyler?
Is 300-32.1-1-262.
I'm okay with the extension of
Yeah,
time.
me too.
Yeah.
I am too.
All right, I'll make the motion being I have the tax map number. Humphreys, I make a motion to extend it for the extension of time for Humphreys at 300-32.1-1-262.
Oh, okay,
Second.
100, the Forest Road, Unit 22, yes. Okay, I'll second it.
Concur.
I concur.
I concur.
Thank you. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
That's it for extension of time?
Yeah, that's it for us.
So what else?
I have 3 matters.
Are we going to discuss the?
Three
post-hearing
matters?
decisions, Or
Decision for what?
we have 2 post-hearing decisions?
Yes, I have 2 post hearings, 1 correction, 1 small amended one.
No, I'm saying we have 2 decisions to
Oh,
make.
yeah. Okay.
Should we go through that, or you need to do it, or? You
We'll
want
do
to?
the rest, doesn't matter, huh?
It doesn't, yeah, you can't, I mean, I think we have time. We can do them.
We can what?
We can do them.
Okay. We're ready,
So-
right?
I'm ready.
Is that what's on the screen? Yeah.
Right, so I'll read the first one into the record. The applicant is Jeffrey Feldkamp at 11 Bayberry Lane in Amagansett. Suffolk tax map number 300-176-1-4. And the size and location is 12,494 square feet at 11 Bayberry Lane, Hampton Dunes, lot 93, map number 4694 in Amagansett. The description is to reconstruct and modify approximately 1,250 square foot of existing decking and to allow pool equipment to remain within rear lot line setbacks and within jurisdiction of beach vegetation and freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 3 variances are required for this application. 2 variances of approximately 71.6 feet and 29 feet are required from 255-430 of the Town Code in order to allow the pool decking to be constructed 28.4 feet and pool equipment to remain approximately 71 feet from freshwater wetlands where 100-foot setback is required. One variance of approximately 10.3 feet from 255-1110 is required to allow the pool equipment to remain 9.7 feet from the rear yard lot line setback where 20-foot setback is required, and any other relief necessary. Zoning district is B residence, 8E flood zone, elevation 10, and the secret class is type 2. Joan, if you want to give us.
So the hearing was held on November 15th. And the survey that we were referring to, both the survey and the topographical survey were both dated June 10th, 21, and by Saskis.
We had an updated survey November 2nd.
November 2nd?
Yeah.
Okay, I take that back. November 2nd is the survey.
From this year? No, from
21.
2022, 21.
21.
21.
21.
Jane received November
I need
10th.
to have that. I have June also. All right.
Is it received?
No,
have
I'll
dated
tell you,
this-
I'll tell you the date of survey. I have it here.
I have it right here.
November 2nd, 2021.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the one.
Sorry about that. You recall that this house had started to fix their deck that surrounded the pool. And they got a stop work order when they started to fix the deck and realized it was a bigger project. And then on top of it, they got a stop work order in 21. So they're seeking to not only fix the deck, but legalize it and expand it a little bit. And in addition to legalize the pool equipment, the deck's frame had rotted. I think you may remember from the pictures, they had put down AstroTurf on top of the decking. I don't have a particular problem with them fixing their deck. And they submitted a letter explaining that when they initially bought the house, they relocated the pool equipment, which now backs onto a nature preserve because of their neighbor. So the pool equipment isn't bothering anyone, although it does need some variances. I don't really have much more to say about the application, except that I think we had discussed that there would be some revegetation in the rear and to make that a condition of approval. In the rear,
Right. I think I'm trying to remember the
Along the
extent
west
of it.
border.
Yeah, along the
was in
west.
the
Yeah.
west corner, right?
Right.
Right.
I'm happy to hear what other people have to say.
Terry, you want to go?
So Joan, are you
Yeah.
approving the application?
I'm inclined to
approving.
approve it.
She is.
I don't see any
The whole
red
thing?
flags.
Okay, some additional comments, regarding the pool equipment. If you look, there's a survey that we had attached in the existing conditions memo, which originally showed that the pool equipment was kind of put in with the pool decking, and then that was moved according to the agent, Joe Halsey, because the neighbor to, I guess it would be to the east, was complaining about noise, and that the applicant did that, move the pool equipment, but in doing so, they had pool equipment which was perfectly fine where it was and didn't require any setbacks, and they moved it into an area now where it required both the side yard setback that was discussed and the variance for the wetlands that are on the south side of the property. And the variance actually was kind of thrown because they went it was stated that the pool equipment was originally where that pool is on that other survey, the pool equipment. And it went from being like about 85 or 86 feet away from the wetlands down to being now only 71 feet away from the wetlands. And that was kind of used as a reason why it should be approved. I don't quite get that, but anyway, I am looking to deny the pool equipment. As far as the decking, even though that's a very large variance, the pool decking that was added as a result of the whole repair and restructuring of the decking was really just a small portion down on the southern side, where it had been cut off and they squared it off. So on the survey that you see now, it's squared off down there. I am okay with that, with the pool decking variances and the NRSP. As it was stated in the TAM, as far as the pool decking, it really is a small amount, and planning does not feel that it in any way could negatively impact the natural resources conditions of the wetlands down there. So that's where I am. I think the pool equipment can be put back into a more conforming location. I don't think this is the minimum variance necessary for it. And as far as the property next door, being a preserve, this is in perpetuity. So I do feel that it can be put into a better spot and eliminate those variances.
Can I ask you, Terry, what about, I thought that the condition of having a re-veg plan would there was sort of a nexus between the two, that if they revegetated the back corner, that would sort of offset where the pool equipment is.
Or weren't they going to re-veg that anyway? With the pool decking?
No, well, I may be mistaken, but I thought it came up
I did too.
as a recommendation in the TAM as mitigation. Otherwise, there's no nexus. Well, I guess
Well,
granting the pool
The
deck.
decking itself.
Yes, you're
the
right.
decking is-
You're right. And you're right. You're right.
Okay, we'll go
My
on to,
opinion, my opinion.
right, good. Denise, you want to go?
Sure. In terms of the pool decking, I think the impact will not be significant from what already exists on the property. The TAM notes that the impacts will be minimal. And the proposed decking is actually very similar to what existed prior to, they simply were squaring off the deck around the pool. But I have to say, I'm in agreement with Member Berger about the pool equipment. In terms of the pool equipment, I don't think it meets the variance standards when there are other locations available. And it certainly is not the minimum necessary. I know that the TAM indicates mitigation for the project. The board should consider revegetating to the rear of the lot, north, south, and west of the swimming pool. But I didn't really look at that as a reason to approve the pool equipment. So for those reasons, I'm approving the pool decking, but denying the request for the pool equipment.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, so the allowable deck repairs that took place initially led to the structural repairs, which has already been mentioned. And it should have been a moment there where people stopped and realized, either the builder or the owner, based on the sensitivity of his lot, that there was a need for a building permit and a ZBA approval, but that didn't happen. The stop work order eventually brought them around, and they did this temporary repair where we saw the astroturf that was in Joan's photos. And we were at the point of then asked, what do we think about the squaring off of one corner of the deck and filling in the area where the pool equipment was moved from? what I'm bothered about the decking is not that I'm going to approve it, but I'm just bothered by this almost pattern that goes on where we see work get done and it moves forward. And then later on, either the applicant or blames the builder, and no one wants to take any responsibility for understanding what the zoning is in these cases. It's really time for when we have an owner who buys a sensitive piece of property to familiarize themselves with what the problems are in moving forward in construction. So I'm always bothered when that comes up. However, it is a small amount, and as was pointed out by Member Savarese, it mentions in the TAM that the overall project does not appear to be a significant deviation from existing conditions. And so the decking is easy enough for us to allow to move forward and to approve as is. The pool equipment being moved from 85 feet away to 75 feet or 71 feet away is of a concern. But it also is further from the neighbor to the north, and it's closer to this town-owned parcel, which is partially an improvement certainly for the neighbor. And perhaps if we look at impact within the neighborhood, are we doing something that makes the quality of the neighborhood have an improvement by moving the pool equipment? They did that on their own. They did it without permission. And I think there's just something wrong with that. However, I do think that the replanting of the sandy areas and the idea that the entire western border of this would be replenished and would be an area that we would see a more robust planting throughout, and therefore acting as a buffer with the western property line, which is the one that borders on the town property, was enough for me to say that although I think that there is a real concern, and I think my fellow board members are correct to point it out, the move, by 14 feet closer to the wetlands is of concern. I am going to approve both the deck and the pool equipment.
Thank you, Ed. I agree with the decking. I think it's a de minimis request, and sometimes you have to ask yourself, would the board approve that to begin with? I get the fact that they built it and asking for forgiveness, but I think the board would have approved that. I think it's de minimis, and I would approve that. Regarding the pool equipment, there's actually two things going on here. There's a dimensional variance being requested. And I think in this case, a dimensional variance does meet variance standards because of the uniqueness of the reserve next door. So there is not going to be a noise variance. It's better for the neighbor next door. Regarding the NRSP for it, I agree with my vice chair that I think that the revegetation is an adequate offset mitigation for the location of that pool equipment. I don't think it's going to affect, let's just leave it at that. I think that the re-veg is adequate offset for that. So I look to approve it. You good?
Got it.
Thank you. Next, we have Capkey Dolphin Partners LLC at 16 Dolphin Drive in Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-131-5-11. The size and location is 7,417 square feet at 16 Dolphin Lane in Montauk-on-the-Sea, Section A, Lot 87, Map number 2438 in Amagansett. The description is to demolish all existing structures and to construct a 2,121 square foot, two-story residence outside the town's pyramid regulations with second story and roof decking, walkways, new pervious driveway, AC units and utilities, a new IA sanitary system, and to clear approximately 936 square foot of vegetation on a parcel of land containing dune land and beach vegetation. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to section 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code, and two variances are required for this application. Two variances of approximately 2.25 feet are required from 255-1172D of the Town Code to allow the residence to be constructed outside the town's pyramid regulations approximately 2.25 feet along the eastern and western lot lines. and any other relief necessary. Zoning district is B residence, AE flood zone, elevation 9, and the secret class is type 2. Right again.
So you may recall this property sits on the corner of Leeton and Dolphin Drive. Was the most recent hearing was November 15th with the proposal and a cover letter of August 11th, 2022. And I cite that letter because the letter summarized some of the changes. There had been a prior hearing on February 15th, 2022, and a subsequent hearing that was held on June 14th, 2022, based on modifications submitted May 17th, 2022. So the reason I referred to the August 11th, 2022 letter is that they had made even more modifications than they had originally proposed. The architect is Stella Lamont Ruani, and the plans were dated August 18th, 2021. I think I meant 2022. And the survey is Baralinsky Land Surveying dated July 19th, 2022, stamp received August 11th. The August 11th letter summarized some of the work they had done in terms of reducing building lot coverage, total lot coverage, and gross floor area, and reducing the area of disturbance. I'm not going to read all the numbers, but I'll just give them to you, Hope, if you want it as a reference. I think they did a good job working with a lot in a sensitive area to not only create a FEMA compliant house, but taking what was a non-conforming property, particularly with respect to the pyramid, and reduce the pyramid violation by half. They have a narrower footprint, and they're offering to revegetate 2,327 square feet when completed. A number of, I think, compared to a number of properties along Dolphin Drive, they haven't disturbed the dune and beach vegetation, unlike some other properties where they're growing grass. So I believe they'll be good stewards and appear to be sensitive to the unique area that they're in. They received 20 plus supporting neighbors' signatures. They did receive one letter of objection. So, and some, I'm inclined to approve this request.
Thank you. Ed, you want to go?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so as was mentioned by Joan, that this was a second hearing. We reviewed this project earlier in early 2022. And we, at a work session, eventually in a 2-2 split, there was a denial. This property is beautiful and sensitive in the sense that it's located adjacent to parkland directly to the east. There was a lot of comment during hearings, both the first and second hearing, about maintaining the character of that adjacent parkland, and to see to it that their building protocols clearly stated that there would be no parking of tractor trailers off the road and into that parkland, which, you know, they wouldn't be allowed to do, and that they would agree that they would show great sensitivity to that. This is an overcleared lot. It's got a very sensitive area in terms of dune ecology. We talk about that as we go through this entire subdivision. We've had many of these cases coming from us. This is a densely developed subdivision, and we've seen these small lots with houses come in for request on a regular basis. The new residence that is proposed, though, sits largely in the footprint of the existing house. As was pointed out by Joan, that they've made every effort to accommodate what is this very tight lot with great constrictions in terms of what you can do, and put a smart, intelligent, well-built house in this location. I think this is a strong application. I thought the first one was a strong application. I think they've made improvements since. The new application decreases the GFA. I think the re-veg plan improves the dunescape of surrounding that. As was mentioned, 3,000 feet of revegetation. It's largely cleared at this point on the south side of the lot, where you get a new IA system along with this house that gets, excuse me?
I forgot the new IA system.
Mhm.
And then there was also the comment that the soils would stay on site so that the seed bank that's involved in saving those soils will remain and can help with the natural revegetation of the area and natural growth coming back. I think, as I said, it was a solid, well-designed plan. I think that given the restrictions and the demands of trying to build a new and more, let's say, convenient and modern house there, that this was a very solid application. One follow-up, we did get those letters of support, and one of the neighbors did call in, and he had some very great concerns. And I just want to say that whether or not a property gets used in a way beyond our control is not in our purview, so that the notion that it might or might not be a party house is something that code enforcement would handle. And so we're not here to comment on that. But in review, I think a solid job, an intelligent take on this. And I think that they did what they had to try to make this house work as successfully as they can on a rather constricted lot. So I'm looking to approve the application.
Thank you. Denise?
Well, I have to say I wasn't in favor of the previous application, but I am in favor of this one. I think they've gone to great lengths to make this a better application. And I think that they do meet the standards for 255-420 and 255-1172D. They also, in their letter dated May 17th, 2022, actually offered in addition, if the board prefers such a layout, the applicant could further reduce total coverage on the lot by approximately 375 square feet by eliminating the proposed retaining wall on the east side of the house. They also noted that it's only 18 inches tall and will be planted with native vegetation. Its purpose was to break up the eastern elevation and reduce the visual impact because the first floor elevation to meet FEMA. I actually think they've done such a really nice job that I don't even think that's necessary. I think it'll actually look nice, and I'm very pleased when, you do have concerns and you have agents and attorneys that are willing to work with us and have respect for those concerns. We are here to be stewards of the environment ourselves. So for these reasons, I am in favor of approving this application.
Thank you. Terry?
Okay, I won't repeat everything, but I too was denied the original application. And I do, I was torn on the first one, saying it was a good application, but didn't quite think it got there with the NRSP standards. I have to say this was an improvement. I'm very pleased that the applicant came back with the new proposals. We changed, we went down a little bit on, building lot coverage and total lot coverage. They reduced the GFA and the area of disturbance. They eliminated a staircase. They reduced interior. They reduced by one bedroom. So they did make it more compact. And to me, it was just what was needed to make this project good for me. I do think as far as the little wall that Denise sent, I have trouble visualizing that would look completely in keeping, but I'm fine with it. if that's what they want to do with the planter. I thought it might look nicer just to see the new structure from the east, but that's a design feature, so we can leave it as they designed it. So I do think now with the changes that they made and the additional changes for the NRSP and the revegetations that they have offered, that I do think it meets the standards of 255, 551 for preservation of natural resources and compatibility. I think it is compatible now, particularly with the character of the neighborhood, and that they have done a good job in the environmental protection also of this project. So I too am looking to approve it.
Thank you.
Am I allowed, can I
Sure.
add like one more thing? I think for me, a lot of times, especially with a natural resource special permit, one of the real big things I look at is the area of disturbance. So they've made a tremendous effort here because existing is 3,750 square feet, and the previously proposed in that application, there was 5,200 square feet, and now proposed is 4,686 square feet. So I think that's noteworthy and very significant.
You stole my thunder, but
I
yes,
did?
yeah, that's okay. No, that was going to be my comment. I agree with this. If you take a look at the proposed clearing and the sill fence, I think it's a well-defined, it's defined in this. We don't always see that defined. And I think oftentimes on sensitive properties like this, we should also take a look at. I know the planning department does a good job at identifying construction limiting fences, but it's well-defined here as well. Thank you.
Now, we have, I just want to add, we have this construction protocol from the original hearing. I assume that that's still what's going to be followed?
I would assume so too.
Yeah, okay. And in that, on like page 8, we would talk, there was a concern about where the workers are going to park, which is a concern always. It does state that their vehicles will park within the limits of the right-of-way, Dolphin Drive, and on the west side of the roadway, so that there should not be any construction vehicles or workers' vehicles adjacent to the preserve.
Great. That's it for decisions. I think we have 2 resolutions tonight, Council.
So we have,
Ferrandino.
yeah, there was a third email. So I have two resolutions and then one just correction. We'll just do the correction first because it's the easiest of the 3. Kathy O'Sullivan, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-28-7-34.1. We approved this determination last week. However, it had to be amended. The applicant pointed out that the purpose of the application under project description A1 was incorrect. It was based on the old application and not the new one. So I just flipped the paragraph and put the new statistics into that paragraph. And then for some reason, I left off all of their surveys. So I'm not sure why. I'm just going to blame it to being a tough week last week. But I added in a new A, B, and C, and added in the survey of the property, the sanitary plans, and the house plans with their correlating dates. And that's the only thing that changed. Nothing else in the decision changed. It's essentially administrative errors.
So we should have a motion on that to.
Yes, to accept the amended determination,
All right.
please.
So I can make that motion if you want. Or
No.
I'll make a motion to accept the amended determination for Sullivan, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-28-7-34.1 as written.
I'll second it.
Concur.
Thank you.
Concur.
Next up, Peter Ferrandino at 73 Surfside Avenue in Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-51-2-10.
So that one we're going to adjourn to our next meeting. That one I didn't write yet.
Okay.
I do have Stephen and Fiona Silver.
That's at 60 Seabreeze Lane in Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-175-7-28.
Perfect. This application was to demolish all the existing structures to construct a 3,672 square foot residence with 576 square foot detached garage, a 534 square foot swimming pool, 44 square foot pool equipment shed, approximately 6,680 square foot ground floor pool patio, and approximately 2,250 square foot of first and second story decking, outdoor shower stairs, walkway, light wells, retaining walls, and a new IA sanitary system. Overall, the board was in favor of this application. The applicant reduced the project size by approximately 20% of the original application, and the removal of the garage from below the residence decreases the amount of the disruption to the site. In addition, the proposed application reduces the clearing and total lot coverage by approximately 10% from the original proposal. And the placement of the garage as a standalone structure is better than the alternative to having the garage underground, which was something that we considered during the variance request. As such, all members of the board were in agreement to pass the application, to approve the application, excuse me.
Thank you.
Did we all agree on the garage? Were we all in agreement on the garage?
Yeah, everyone,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Joe?
Mhm.
Oh,
I don't,
you don't have it. Okay.
yeah, I'm so
You want
sorry.
this?
You want to make that, Vice Chair?
Okay. Then in the matter of Stephen and Fiona Silva at 60 Seabreeze Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300 -175-07-28. I'd like to make a motion to accept the determination as written.
Second,
I concur.
We'll give the second to Terry.
Terry.
Yeah, give it to
concur.
Terry, yeah.
Concur as well.
Keep forgetting about me.
All right, that wraps it up.
How
With
could we
One
forget?
more.
Wait, we could do the minutes. I did check the minutes.
Did you, okay, go for the minutes.
Okay, well, we have two to do. Last week we tabled them. So for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals, I make a motion to approve the minutes for December 6th, 2022. I'm going to do them separately.
I'll second
Somebody
it.
second,
Concur.
Concur.
I concur.
okay? And for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals, I make a motion to approve the minutes of December 13th, 2022.
Second,
I concur.
I concur.
concur.
Thank you. That wraps it up, and I'll look to my vice chair to end the meeting, and we wish everybody a healthy and safe and enjoyable holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And I'd like to make a motion to close the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals hearing and work session for December 20th, 2022 at 8:12 PM.
Thank you.
Second.
Concur.
Concur. Somebody didn't concur yet. The chair didn't concur. You guys froze?
Concur.
I concur.
Merry Christmas.
Okay.
Merry Christmas.
For the new proposed, perfect.